Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk, How to Cheat a Quadruped Walk. Thank you very much for coming. We'll be learning a bit about quadrupeds and walks. My name is Victor Gil Lopez, and I'm lead animator in Orog Digital. That's the studio down in Bristol. Yeah, I'm an animal enthusiast. I love animals, big and small. And before joining Orog, I was senior animator first and then lead animator in Planet Zoo. That's in Frontier Development. Not in vain, my wife and some of my best friends are zookeepers, hence all these selfies that you're seeing, um, which are basically what this talk is about, just showing those selfies. Just kidding. But yeah, I wanted to brag about them a tiny bit. Anyway, I love animals very much, but just as a user level, I'm not truly an expert. I guess unless anyone's an expert, which in certain way I think is kind of true because as humans we're so well attuned to find the little the little nuances on animal motion, the little patterns in how they move. For example, my mom knows nothing about animation, but she will be able to tell me if the animal I'm animating is ill, is tired, is tense, is aggressive. uh, she wouldn't be able to tell me why because that's probably more technical. It might be like pattern, it might be dragging speed, things like that. But she will tell me how it feels because we kind of have that at the back of our brain as if our life depended on that, because probably it did back in the day. Anyway, as a kind of traditionally trained animator, I kind of I was kind of scared of quadrupeds. They intimidated me quite a bit, and that's because it's twice as many legs, twice as many passing poses, and all of that. But back when I was at Jagex, this guy Rob Hemmings came and gave this lecture on quadruped locomotion with his method, and I was so amazed because it was very counterintuitive. It contravened all the rules in the Animator Survival Kit. Maybe not all of them, but a few of them. But it was very practical, and it got results really quickly, so I started trying that on my own. If you don't know who Rob Hemmings is, probably you should Google him because he's not just an animator, but he also teaches, in case you're interested. He's a legendary creature animator who's been in very big shows. So yeah, anyway, I practiced that, and a few years later, that came in handy for Planet Zoo, where I applied that to full extent with a lot of success, I must say. Cool. So we're going to divide this in three different sections. We're going to talk about the objectives and things like that in the intro. Then we will talk about a few core principles for quadruped locomotion. They will be just scratching the surface, and then we will have a big section of me trying this method, demoing it for all of you in a pre-recorded video. So yeah, the objectives. So the idea with this method is to get a really good foundation for your quadruped walk in hopefully under an hour of work. I know that sounds sounds kind of short in time, but usually it's enough. And the idea is that this will give you a kind of vanilla walk where you can mm, put more effort and make it more unique. So yeah, the idea is that you get the foundation and then you start building up in layers or put the animal on a path or something like that. The way this method works is it focuses on one leg and then you nail that one down very neatly, and then you copy that across and to the rear of the animal. Um, it also uses a mechanical approach rather than focusing too much on the poses and things like that. It kind of focuses on what the leg is doing, how it should be doing it, uh, because how the animal is moving, and then informing the rest of the body based on that. Cool. Yeah. So this was very revolutionary for me. It might feel a bit conventional to you, depending on what type of training you've gotten, but it was really good for me. So I wanted to share it with you all. I know it might feel a bit counterintuitive. It certainly did for me because you will have keys on ones, you will have keys out of your cycle range. You will have to bake a few different times. Um, but having this kind of semi-destructive approach to animation helped me um, I don't know, lose the fear of backing down, lose the fear of keys on ones, and it helped me be much quicker. So I hope it does the same for you. Uh, Obviously it might not work for the type for your type of workflow or for your type of creature, but it's again it's probably roughly an hour or a couple of hours, so I would give it a try. It won't hurt for sure. um, Also, bear in mind that pre-recorded video is going to be real time, but it was rehearsed. I can't promise you you will get the same results in 20 minutes. I'm not even sure if I will succeed. Um, and obviously, we're just scratching the surface. This is um, very brief. If you want to go more in depth, I would Google Rob Hemmings, as I mentioned. Check his animation a team school because I think he's still training, and you might learn this method directly from him. Um, Oh, and last but not least, I'm not an expert in animals, even though I love talking about them, and it's kind of a hobby for me. I'm not a zoology or a zoologist or a ethologist, so some of my anatomy or whatnot might be wrong. But yeah. Anyway, uh, another thing is I'm going to try to use as simple Maya as possible, because you could automate a lot of this. You could use an embed or other tools, or write your own scripts, but I want it to be as accessible as possible. The only thing I'm going to be using that is kind of out of the ordinary in Maya is that LGPL version 3 pose library that also has a mirror tool. But anything that mirrors from one side to the other should suffice. So you could use an embed or your own script or whatever. Cool. And before we proceed, thank you very much to Diana Kotseva. She gave us this amazing model. And also thank you very much to Mihaila Gagalova for rigging it for us. You can obviously Google them, search them in ArtStation. And I think if you go to Gumroad, to Mihaila's Gumroad, you might find a version of this rig. I don't think it's the exact same, but a similar version in case you want to, I don't know, follow along with it. Anyway, cool. A few principles, a few anatomical principles. They're going to be brief and probably um, inaccurate to a certain extent, but if you haven't searched comparative anatomy, probably you should do that if you're going to do quadrupeds, because it's kind of eye-opening when you kind of see the different ways the legs are built using the same type of bones but in different shapes and forms. It's quite eye-opening because in this case, the function is determined by that structure, and you can see in there how, for example, our leg might be built for more stability, which frees our hands, or the leg of a cat can kind of have that spring action built into it, so they can absorb a lot of force when going down, or the ungulates can be very efficient when walking long distances and such. Anyway, this is really interesting. I'm not going to go any deeper, but yeah. This one is uh, is probably well, it's a good rule of thumb. I was debating if I should include it, but just for the sake of completion. One thing to bear in mind with quadrupeds, and especially on the rear legs, well, on the rear legs actually, is that kind of parallelism between the thigh and the foot bone. That kind of tends to move in tandem. And in this picture, you can see how that's not a strict rule, how those blue shaded bones are not completely in parallel. But in general, this is more often than not. So something to bear in mind when you check your reference. Here you can see it in action. Is a soft rule, but especially for the passing pose, if it's not working, it might come down to this. Cool. Next thing, when you're given a reference, what you should be looking at on that reference. So first of all is the cycle length. um, I think you can try to be as accurate as possible and as close to your reference as possible. But something I would do is try to convert that to a reasonable cycle length. So that's multiples of 4 normally, or and ideally multiples of 3 as well. So your 12 frames is really good, 18 frames is really good, 24, 32, 48. Anyway, something that you can divide by 4, and that will give you the 4 sections of your walk. You can go with odd numbers if you want, but that will make your life slightly harder. So um, because this will mean stretching the length of your reference by zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2, I think is completely worth, and it will give you make things much easier for you. Poses we're going to be looking for are contact, push, break the wrist, and passing pose. Three of them are quite common. The break the wrist we will discuss during the practical bit, and yeah, we'll check the leg pattern. The only neat thing you need to know is the difference between front and rear, and what's the amount of frames, the delay in frames from those two. Cool. And finally, the speed. Speed sometimes is not given in your reference, but you can Google most animals and have a rough estimate of the speed, because there's plenty of papers. It's in Wikipedia and places like that. One thing, though, is these kind of units that you will be getting from here are not Maya related, so they won't be speaking of frames or anything like that. So I built myself a nifty calculator. You can get yourself one as well. You have all the formulas there. You might want to take notice. So this one has 2 sections. The top one, you give it the two values in that red squares, and it will output the value in yellow, and also all the values in gray. Those are automatically calculated. So basically on that one, you're giving it a speed, a maximum speed, and then a number of frames for your cycle, and it will give you the Maya units. And bear in mind that those Maya units might differ if you're working in inches or meters or whatever, so you might need to adjust those formulas. And the one in the bottom is kind of the opposite. You will give it frames and Maya units, and it will give you the speed. Really useful. You thought this was going to be just about art, but there was some math involved. Anyway, so that's, I think, enough for now. I've talked for long enough about all this, and what we can do now is just jump into action. Let's watch that video, and I will be commenting on that as we go. But yeah, hopefully it will be useful for you. So let's start the timer. Cool. So yeah, as you can see, this is my rig, and it's kind of a mixture between a goat and a llama. So first thing first, I'm going to slow down the reference I found, because it's a goat and goats are quite light. So I'm going to add a speed effect strip in Blender, and I'm going to set that to 0.7, something like that, until it feels nice for me. And this is kind of feeling nice. So I'm going to hover around where the cycle would happen, and right now it's happening at 34. That's a bad number. So what I want to do is that to be 32 probably is much better. So I'm as you can see, I'm fetching that number, the multiplier for the speed to 0.72. So now it's bang looping at 32, which is going to facilitate things quite a bit. So yeah, with that, my cycle determined, the right speed on my reference, I can jump straight into Maya. And in Maya, what we have to do first is to create a mirroring table. Uh, Again, you can be using whatever system you want. This is free, so if you want, you can use it. I'm just creating a mirror table there, which is going to hold all the controllers, and it's going to have a reference between left and right, and that will allow me to mirror later. Cool. So next step is going to 32. That is what we determined was going to be our cycle length. We're going to reduce our time slider to that. Cool. So first thing first is our contact pose. Usually is the first pose we go for, which is going to involve all the joints on the leg, any ball vector or anything like that, and also the chest. Going forward, rotating forward a tiny bit, going down a tiny bit as well. And something we're going to kind of eyeball through between the reference and our animation is that angle of the leg. Try to get that correct, because that's quite informative of how the animal will be moving. And the next pose is going to be the stream back. So we're going to go through our animation or through our reference rather, and find that in frame 20 is our extreme back before the leg departs from the ground. So we're going to pose that again, focusing on all the joints in the extremity. In this case, we won't do any chest, just the leg, but make sure that leg is correct, the angle is correct, and if there's any peeling or anything like that, we will add that. Also, all the time the leg is in contact with the ground, we want that line to be completely straight. So that's going to be a constant, um, well, whatever name is in Maya. So it's just because the momentum will be preserved, so that leg is going to be constant when they plant. Cool. Next pose is breaking the wrist pose, and this is something that that is kind of common in quadrupeds, especially in cats and ungulates. And it's that bit where you can see a very abrupt snap between the previous pose when the leg is loaded with weight, and when it kind of unloads that weight, you can see that visible kick down, kick back. And usually that is because I think it's something to do with the structural anatomy. I'm not completely sure why. But yeah, next thing we're going to do is up and downs in the chest, and we're going to add two of them. And it's going to look really weird because we're just copying from one side to the other. It's going to look very weird whilst we only have one leg animated. But trust me, it will work later. Cool. So we have up and down and leg with two poses in it. So next thing we want to check is the front. So let's first of all compensate to this to move the line of the foot so it's got some depth to it. Normally animals tend to plant near the center line of the body, go back like that, and then open for the passing pose. So we're going to aim that, and that's also something that we want to add to the chest. So the chest tilts a tiny bit, and it kind of offsets the weight to the other leg a tiny bit. We're copying that from the middle of the second section to the middle of the first section, and we're going to invert those curves so it rotates one side and the other regularly in regular intervals. And at the start and the end, we're converting that to linear, so it kind of flows. That loop kind of flows uninterruptedly. It's not a problem here, but because we might offset afterwards, we need that to be a good loop. Cool. Oh, I missed copying that post correction that I did. So I'm copying from frame 0 to the last frame. And that's looking correct to me. The reason for doing this front bit is because now I'm going to focus a lot on making that IK work throughout the contact phase of the walk. And that's going to be time consuming. I might go down to animate on once. Uh, and if I was going to alter that chest later, it might mess up with this. So I'm going to go and where that IK is breaking, I'm going to rein that in. Uh, Usually with using the shoulder. In ungulates, it might be wrong using the shoulder because, well, as you might know, cats. Cats especially have a floating scapula, and that can be moved quite a bit. But horses, I don't think they do. But in my experience, it's usually fine to do that on the shoulder because it doesn't show up all that much. If not, what you could do is to do that on the chest or on the foot roll, just to compensate that IK. What you want is an almost completely extended IK because legs of animals tend to lock this joint tends to lock in position while they're under load, but not completely, not as extended as they pop. So yeah, that's what we want essentially. Next bit is the passing poses. Usually a couple of passing poses is enough. So I'm in the length of this cycle, I'm going to go to +3 from the break of the wrist, and then +6, I think. So that first one, and the best thing you can do is just check your reference, see what it's doing, and just try to mimic that in your animation. So as you can see, the first one is kind of a normal. The second one, the second passing pose, is kind of high and will give the animal kind of a stompy nature. So these two are usually quite important. Uh, Always, and if you can, drive them from the shoulder, because in the passing pose is the shoulder that is driving that movement. Sometimes the chest as well, but yeah, just make sure you involve the shoulder on those passing poses. Another important secondary pose is the perplanting. Depending on the animal, it will be different. In this in this particular one, it's just one frame above ground and it goes down. That will uh, help that stompy nature of this animal. In other cases, and especially in cats, you will have that nice slap where the cats kind of slap at the front, and that gives them a lot of power and a lot of character. So just make sure you understand that from your reference. It might be just one pose or a couple of poses, but something to bear in mind. And as you can see, I think I've got quite a big pop in the shoulder. I think I made a mistake there. Because normally you want a tiny bit of pop when the shoulder goes down, but I think I have way too much there. So I'm going to change that. And then what I'm going to use that little snap, is to use a little muscle vibration on the shoulder. Normally that adds a lot to the animation. So I'm going to, usually what I do is I have the first one hits in one with the contact, and then two frames after I have a residual one to the other side, three after another one to the other, and then three after another one. Yeah, obviously it depends on the animal and the weight and how big they are, but this usually is roughly what I use, and seems to work well. um, so yeah, I'm going to try to clean up this front leg as much as possible. In a normal situation, I would spend probably 75 of my time on this. So 45 minutes just making sure that front leg is as perfect as it can be. And there will be things that change afterwards, but I want to have as a great foundation as possible. In this case though, because we're already at minute 10, so probably we need to move forward now and start doing the rest. But yeah, I'm not fully satisfied with this, but it should do. Again, we have uh, a lot that could be improved, especially from the front. But anyway, let's carry on. So next thing that we will do is, well, first of all, save this as your pre kind of mirroring version. And what we're going to do is going to copy across from the left hand side to the right. So we select all the controllers in the right in the left side of the body, and then we hit that mirror tool that we just built, or mirror table rather. In this particular case, you have to apply it twice, and I think that's because of the order of the controllers. But depending on what system you use, you might be fine just applying it once. Again, yeah, that's now mirrored from the front as well. And something we want to check is that says set translation is linear for this right leg as well, because sometimes because of your default tangents that might be flat. So yeah, we're good. And what we want to do now is to go more or less to the middle of our first section of well, not our first section of our contact pose. And that what we're going to do, we're going to think that that's our passing pose on the front leg, and then we're going to pose the rear leg kind of on a passing pose as well. That is usually kind of slightly forward from the hips, uh, because the neutral pose is usually way too back. So something like that is more of a pose. And then what we're going to do is select the front leg, select the rear leg, and we're going to apply a point constraint to them. So they move in parallel. It's going to look pretty bad to start with, and that's because, well, they move slightly different, but it should be enough for us for now. And we're going to bake that animation down and remove that constraint. So let's search for that constraint, and we will be removing that. Cool, cool. And once we have this, we are going to dive straight into that rear leg, and we're going to, well, yeah, first check that the translation is correct, which seems to be. Maya's been quite diligent when pasting that animation, but it might not be the case. And another thing we're going to do is we're going to copy that animation that we had from the chest into the rear and into the bum. And this is just me being lazy. Normally, you would like to do this on its own, or just at least reduce the up and down because or reduce or increase because sometimes there's a difference from the front to the back. But it's fine. Next thing we're going to do is to do our kind of lifting pose at the end of the contact phase, and this is going to be probably more of a kind of a push pose rather than the break of the wrist. I think the breaking of the wrist usually applies only to the front legs. Obviously, go with your reference, but yeah, I would say that's probably the case. So yeah, certainly in this reference, it's more of a push, and what we want to do is to show that nice peeling of the hoof when they depart the ground. Again, because that contrast between front and leg way of moving will give a lot to this walk cycle. Cool. So that's nice. Seems to be more or less correct. Next thing we want to look into is probably that passing pose in frame plus 3 or something like that, and we can see how kind of draggy this real leg is. So I think I went a bit too far there. Probably it's just on frame 24, 25. I want to change that. Anyway, we will add as much as needed of passing poses. Again, this is going to inform how the animal moves, if it's stumpy, if it's fast, because those passing poses can be very different. And also, as we did with the front leg, just a pre-contact. And usually, both in cats and ungulates, that pre-contact is nice to have, like it slides for one frame or a couple of frames forward, and that is essentially to save you trouble later because the rear and the front might collide because the rear arrives before the front departs, so you have that kind of motion where the rear kicks the front, and giving it a bit of slide forward might help that not being the case. um, so yeah, what's next? Oh yeah, I noticed there's some issues with the IK here. So let's fix those quickly and make sure our cycle is as correct as possible. Again, probably if I had spent more time on the front leg, I wouldn't have had this. But yeah, hey ho, I only have 20 minutes for this. Cool. So with that done, yeah, that looks better to me. Cool. With that done, what we want to do now, and I'm quite conscious of the time, is we're going to copy the real leg to the other side. So again, as we did with the front one, let's select one side and one side only, remove everything from the front, and paste it on the other side. Cool. And for pasting it, we're going to use again our post library to do the mirroring. Um, cool. Again, we're going to go through it twice because sometimes it doesn't work the first time, but yeah, seems like it's going okay. And as we've done before, and here you can see an example, the Z translation on the right one is flat because of my default tangents, so it's always good to check that. Um, cool, and that's working well. So yeah, next thing we're going to do is we're going to start offsetting. Till here, this has been looking very weird because there wasn't any offset, but we're going to start offsetting. So what we will go is select the rear bit, and then we're going to count from the moment that rear leg plants to the moment that the front leg plants. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it was 9 frames. So with that in mind, we're going to select both rear legs and also the hips controller, and we're going to offset them to the left for 9 frames. So they arrive 9 frames early than the front legs. And the other thing we're going to do is to pre-cycle and post-cycle, so our curves kind of cycle, because now we're going to start offsetting things in and out of the main time slider. Cool. So yeah, one thing I noticed is that thing that I told you that they might clash a tiny bit. So what I'm going to do is select those two controllers and only the Z translation curve. I'm going to drop that down a tiny bit just to make things slightly easier. And as you can see, that broke my full extension a tiny bit because the IK is um, is breaking there. So I'm just going to nudge that a tiny bit. Again, probably this is anatomically incorrect, and that would be a completely locked articulation or joint. But for the sake of brevity, let's just fix that. Cool. And it doesn't look too bad, I don't think. Cool. So with that done, what we're going to do now is to offset one side against the other. And for these, we don't need to count anything. It's going to be straight away bang on the middle of the cycle. So we select just one side. It doesn't matter which one. Uh, I'm missing one pole vector there, but I guess it doesn't matter that much. And we're going to find the middle of our cycle, which is 16 in our case, select everything and move it to one side or the other. It doesn't matter again. And with that, we're just really quickly positioning everything there. So yeah, we're under 20 minutes and we have already a good kind of base for this walk. One extra point we're going to do is we're going to copy the translate Y from the chest because we know there we have a kind of a consistent up and down, and we're going to paste that on rotate X on all our FK controls on the neck and head, and you will see why we're doing this because this will give us a bit of animation for free. So that's probably a bit too much. Up and down now transform into rotate X, so we can nudge that to the value we want. And as you can see, that gives us a little bit. But if we start deselecting, pushing 1 frame, so offsetting everything to the right, and going that sequentially deselecting things, that's going to give us that ripple or wave effect really nice and really cheap. Because yeah, it's just copying that. This for heads, tails, things like that. This is really useful, and even for kind of body mass or things like that. If the animal is fat and you want to have that jiggle, usually you get it very easily from that. Next thing we do is copy the Z translation from any of the legs. We're going to copy that on the main controller. So there you go. Remove all the passing bits. So we keep just the contact face of that curve, and then we invert that number to be whatever positive version of the number we had. And then instead of cycle, we have cycle with offset. And that will give us the correct drive forward that we need. So yeah, let's take a look. Voila, this is there. I think it's in a good position. Again, 20 minutes. This is quite rough. I would allow myself a tiny bit more of time, but I mean it's working. It's in a good position, and I just wanted to make the point that this is a a method that works well in general. So yeah, a lot to fix. Possibly a lot to add. If you look at from the front, it's kind of not there yet, quite. Not, not, not quite there yet. You will see it's super linear, and that X on the neck could be copied to other channels, so there's a bit more of a kind of nice motion on the, or nice figure of eight on the nose. But yeah, in general, I'm pretty satisfied. Compared to the reference, I think is working well. And yeah, I hope this is super useful for you. Yeah, that's all I had for you, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you ever want to talk about quadrupeds or to discuss this method, or if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message. Otherwise, we'll have a brief Q&A now. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed. See you later. Bye.
Everyone, hope you're having a great SDC. Thank you so much, Victor, for that presentation. If you're not already doing it, show some love into the chat area. I can see them all coming through already. We got Lou saying, wow, that was amazing, it can be done in 20 minutes. James saying looks awesome. Ollie, very cool. Get to the point so quick. It's a lie from Michaela. Chris saying great demo. A lot of love in the chat for that. I'm actually
Yeah,
blown
that's
away
awesome.
that you did that in 20 minutes as well. So that's awesome.
Well, I'm not gonna say I wasn't surprised myself either. It was a bit of a stretch. Normally, you would take your a little longer, but I mean, the point was proving that this was kind of possible, even if it was slightly rehearsed. But I didn't cut the video. I didn't speed anything up, so I tried to keep things
So
keep things
good.
real.
It's so good. I took two main things away from it. First of all, what a painstaking task to get every little bit and joint doing right. And the second one was the breaking the wrist pose. Just sounds so violent. It just
Yeah, I don't know. That's the name Rob Hemmings gave to it. I don't know if it has a different name somewhere else, but yeah, or maybe I just misheard that, and it's something completely different. But yeah,
just made it up yourself. Now it's your
yeah.
technique. Brilliant stuff. Right, the Q&A is still open. If you do have any more questions that you need to ask Victor, fire them into the Q&A area. Please do so. We have some there already, so I'm going to quickly move over across to them. And I'm going to read from the top down. If you want to vote for which ones that you really want answering, if you've seen somebody else's, by all means, click on that like button and get votes in. But I'm going to go straight to Bradley, and he asked, it can be tricky to find certain animal references or get good footage. Apart from places like YouTube, Vemno, Rhino House, Murbridge, etc., are there any resources you personally know of for reference?
So yeah, it's tricky. The best one I think is YouTube. The trick that helped us through the development of Planet 2 when we did that was searching for the animals in different languages. So if you know the local language an animal is from, it's easier to find it that way. Or other times with the Latin name is useful as well, but sometimes you won't find it. The other tip there is go to the zoo as much as you can. Encourage your team to go to the zoo and record reference for yourself, because you never know when it will come in handy, and have it at hand. Well organized. I mean, I'm obsessed about animals, so I would do that anyway. But if you need any convincing, maybe you can do it for work as well.
Brilliant. So you just got a PC full of random footage of animals that you filmed.
If it was just one PC, it's probably a full server up in the cloud.
Imagine, imagine if they didn't know what you did and what you do, and someone just found PCs full of random footage of animals. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. But no, that's great. So get to grips with Latin names for animals. So upskill yourself so you can find them properly, and the local names for animals as well to help you
Mhm.
with find those references. Right, right. I'm going to move on to the next question, and it's from Lou, and it asks: is it tricky creating quadruped walk for instinct extinct, sorry, animals like dinosaurs? In which case, do you use references to similar animals that exist in the wild?
That's a very good question. Thanks, Lou. Um, I've never animated dinosaurs myself. I've been close to teams that have animated that, and exactly what you said is what they used to do. Research existing animals that look somewhat close to what you're going for. In my presentation, I kind of did that because the animal I was working on is a fantasy creature that is not exactly a goat or exactly a llama. So I took some reference and I altered that with speeding up or doing those types of trickery. So you have an approximation, but it's always going to be a bit of interpretation on your head, I think. The other thing that comes to mind as well with this is that once you've animated a few, you kind of build in the back of your mind how an animal should work, because even though they might be extinct or they might be fantasy creatures, they will be using the laws of gravity, the law of gravity and all the laws of physics to move across the land. So you will develop your own kind of uh, third or a fifth sense of how they should move.
Yeah, whether they should definitely whether it looks weird that they're standing up. The T-Rex comes to mind, right? When making it look like it's standing up properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, another question. This one's from Jennifer, and it's the Rob Hemmings sites sound good. Any other big names you'd recommend watching slash listening to learn and develop techniques?
So not that I followed, but I know a few people who have gone through Animation Mentor Creature Workshop, and I know that that's very expensive, but that seems to be really, really good. Again, I haven't done it myself. Uh, I think a lot of online platforms now have this type of courses. So I animate Nomum or those. I've heard of those being good as well, but I don't have personal experience on them.
Mm, brilliant stuff. Thank you. But you would fully recommend Rob Hemmings and
Yeah.
Mhm.
If he's still teaching, I think he is. But yeah, just check his. I think for sure the video covering this workflow is up there, and you can buy it on its own. But I don't know if he's still running workshops. But yeah, go to his webpage and find out.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. Okay, another question from Ollie this time. Does this workflow work for a run slash gallop too?
So yes and no. I've tried it, and it kind of does work for the legs because the legs are quite mechanical, and when they're in contact with the ground, they will be moving at a constant speed and all that. So that bit does. The bit that doesn't is the up and downs on the chest, because as you might know, for gallops you only have one up and down per cycle, where in walks you have two. So those type of things will be different. I would say try, but it's not a guaranteed. Is not guaranteed that straight away. The way I presented it will work.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for sharing that. I've got one. I think we've got time for just one more question, and
Sure.
this one comes from me. Being in L&D, I'm always interested in when people want to start doing stuff or want to move and start working on these subject matters, these disciplines like yourself. So, I guess what advice would you give to anyone who's exploring or starting to explore this area?
So well, it couple of points there. First one would be to to investigate as much as possible, to watch as many creature films and games as possible, and pay attention to what the animals do. The other one is try out yourself. Nowadays you can find rigs very easily, and you can even animate in Blender if you don't access to a Maya license. So the entry cost is negligible. The thing that I would say, if you want to go seriously about it, is probably find a good mentor or a good program, because that kind of makes things much faster in my experience.
Brilliant. That's great advice. Thank you so much on there. It's my son. He wants to become. Wants to work in game development. So anything like that, nice little tidbits for me to look
Right.
like a cool dad and give him some advice. So brilliant stuff. Well, that's all the questions. If you do have any more questions, the Q&A will be open for maybe another minute or so. If we don't answer those questions on here, don't worry, you'll be able to revisit those questions on Dojo. And if you want to watch through this video again, then you'll be able to revisit it on Dojo in the SDC Vault. So wait for it to be reloaded up onto there. Victor, thank you so much for this.
No, thank you for having me.
That's all right. I'm so fascinated by it. Is it your integral knowledge of joints and being able to put that together and create with that knowledge a real life motion, or I say a motion, animated motion of a quadruped. So really, really interesting.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, the breaking a wrist pose will stay with me.
I hope it does. Thanks so much, Rich.
No problem. Right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of SDC. If we don't see you again for now, it's bye-bye and see you all again soon.
Thank you.